Hey everyone, Corey here. Welcome to episode 247 of the Sports Ballers podcast. On today's early August show, we'll cover the past week of Orioles and Yankees baseball and the MMA fight that broke out at second base in Cleveland. Plus, we welcome Sean Kennedy back into the studio for the first time in 2 years. He spent the past weekend watching ESPN's The Ocho, and we want to know more about the wacky sports they broadcasted. All of that and more coming your way next. Hello and welcome to the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. How are you two doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
Yes.
Eric?
I'm doing pretty good.
Just
It's the middle of the week. It's been a long day, you know.
You better get used to that because we're going to be switching to Wednesdays on a regular basis here pretty soon.
Oh, the horror. I think I'll manage.
Okay. Just making sure. I mean, you know, it's the middle of the week.
Well, this is an unusual Wednesday for me, so let's make that clear.
Do you want to elaborate or no?
Not really.
Okay.
We can move on.
We will move on because along with the three of us, we're joined this evening by a special guest, Sean Kennedy. Welcome back. It's been a while.
Thank you. Happy to be here. It has been a minute.
It has been. I was looking back through all of our episodes, through our past guests, and it was episode 1 of season 4. We're now on episode 2 of season 6.
Oh,
so it was just over 2 years ago that you were last with us. And I don't think that we've ever had all 4 of us in the same room, because the last time that you were with us, I'm pretty sure Evan was remote.
Yeah, I
believe
still
he
lived in
was,
Atlanta
yes.
then.
Yeah. And same with the other couple of times that you've been on the show.
We were all remote for those because it was pandemic
That's
season.
true.
Pandemic season.
So a lot has changed since you were last here. You were already married at that point, but you've taken on a new moniker since then, both in life and on Twitter, now X. Talk to us a little bit about what it means to be the DC Lemon Guy.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. A big XFL fan. The DC Defenders came back, and game 1. We started building the beer snake as always, and Audi security thought otherwise and started taking the cups away. So at the game, they were selling these pre-made cocktails with half lemons in them. So in retaliation, we made it rain yellow on the field.
Throwing lemons?
Yep, just started chucking lemons on the field.
And to be clear, this was lemons that was causing it to rain yellow,
Yes.
because that could go in a completely different direction.
It
Yes.
could, also at Audi too. So. But yeah, it was a good time. We, as the fans, embraced the lemons. So every week I just started getting more stuff off Amazon. I had like an Amazon Hawaiian shirt with lemons on it, lemon hat, lemon shoes. And then people just started to call me the lemon guy. Because I had my sign that said "Feed the Snake" in the shape of a lemon, and I got some shoulder pads from the Penn State blue and white game, painted them up, put the emblem on it, and here I am.
Nice. You're wearing your Defenders jersey tonight?
Yes, custom made because the actual XFL Defenders jerseys are trash
Oh,
and expensive.
okay.
Well,
Trash
and
one is better
expensive.
and less expensive.
Yes.
Wow.
so that's an unusual combo there.
Yeah.
So you were featured in a tweet by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself. How did that feel?
So I found out a couple hours after the fact. I had some friends contacting. They're like, "Oh my gosh, The Rock retweeted you on Twitter." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I go on, scroll on, and
He does, he's a part owner of the XFL.
Sure.
oh yeah,
He's also The Rock.
Yeah, he is
like,
The Rock.
let's not bury the lead here. Like,
So,
come
yeah,
on.
it's like somebody had taken a picture of me in the crowd holding my "Feed the Snake" sign, and The Rock decided he wanted to retweet that.
So whatever Fast 11 winds up being called, can we expect to see DC Lemon Guy in it?
Hopefully. I mean, they have my contact
I thought it was
information.
Fast 10 Part 2, though.
Oh, is that what?
I think it was a Part 1 and 2, which doesn't make any sense.
Oh my
It's like
gosh.
Final Fantasy 10 and Final Fantasy 10 2. That was a thing, in case you didn't know.
when you're doing the numbers thing, why not just do 10 and 11? This is not the same thing as like the end of Harry Potter when they split it into two. Like it actually has a name to the movie, and it's based like the two parts are both based on the same book.
But my assumption is that the plot didn't resolve in one part. And so it left on somewhat of a cliffhanger, and they moved on to...
So I guess I need to ask, because I've never seen any of the Fast... I've seen parts of, like, a couple of the early ones.
I've seen quite a few of them.
They're not my type of movie.
They're not my type of movie either.
Are all of them standalone?
For the most part, it's a standalone story, yeah.
Okay.
Like, there's a couple of little threads that kind of are on...
It's all about family.
So I assume...
It's all about family.
They kill people
It's all the same characters, so I assumed that there was like a progression of the characters.
Like it's like like a TV show where the characters develop relationships over time, but each episode is sort of isolated in terms of the individual plot. It's kind of like that. But Fast 10 Part 1 was not.
Okay.
The story from that movie specifically is going to continue into the next film, which I don't know if they're going to make up 11 after that. I'm sure they will. They're going to keep going until Vin Diesel either dies or quits, but they sell tickets, so get my boy Sean on there. Yeah. The Rock has been out of the loop a little bit though with those movies. He kind of left the franchise, might be coming back, who knows. So
have they gone into space yet?
They should.
I'm pretty sure that seems like the next step.
Like stealing stuff in cars in space.
Yes.
Love it. Sounds perfect.
Let's get back to sports. So got a lot to get to tonight. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to talk to Sean a little bit about his viewing of ESPN's The Ocho over the weekend, but we're going to get to that just a little bit later instead. We're in that part of the year where we're getting close to football, but we're not quite there. It's not the meat and potatoes of our show just yet, so we're going to go ahead and lead with that. A little bit of an update on training camp. Eric, your Saints signed Kareem Hunt and Anthony Barr. Any thoughts about that? I see a thumbs up, but...
I mean, Kareem Hunt is obviously a capable running back. He's probably mainly being signed to fill in for Alvin Kamara while he serves his 3-game suspension. So, I mean, I don't mind the pickup. Obviously, he's got a checkered past when it comes to issues with the NFL as well. But fortunately, for the Saints at least, he's not currently suspended. He was only previously suspended, so... hopefully he can fill in adequately while Kamara's on the shelf. I don't want to say I was pleasantly surprised that Kamara only got 3 games because I was hoping he'd only get 2. I expected him to get 4, split the difference. He got 3. Okay, fine. Learn your lesson and don't start any more brouhahas in Vegas, especially the weekend of the Pro Bowl. That's kind of crazy. But Anthony Barr, feels like he's been around forever. Is he still any good? I feel like he might be cooked. Like the Saints defense looks like it's got enough talent as it is where he might just be a nice little depth piece for the Saints, but I'm not expecting him to come in and be a huge difference maker.
I always got him confused with the former Attorney General who's
Bill Barr?
Yeah.
They're not the same guy. Yeah. One is built for football, the other is
shaped like he's built for football.
Yeah.
Well-rounded athlete.
Yeah.
He's rounded in shape.
My Lions went and signed a quarterback this week. Signed Teddy Bridgewater, former Viking, former Dolphin. He's been around the league a little bit. He was with your Saints for a little bit. I'm definitely happy about that because previously the backup quarterbacks to Jared Goff were Nate Sudfeld and Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Where did Hendon Hooker go then?
Well, he's still on the depth chart, but he's currently injured and he's listed 4th behind Sudfeld.
Is he still coming off of his injury from last year?
I would assume so. Yeah.
Okay. ACL injury that he had. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Teddy Bridgewater is not what he was with the Vikings before his catastrophic injury. He's not even what he was with the Saints. Last year when he came in after Tua's injury for Miami, he didn't do that well. He was mediocre, but at that point, why not go with your young, late round rookie quarterback and just see what he has over Teddy Bridgewater? And that's basically what the Dolphins did last year. So, but certainly he's got to be better than Sudfeld or Hooker. So I'm happy with that signing.
You don't know. Hendon Hooker might be a ball player. He was the Heisman favorite until he got hurt. Just saying.
Maybe.
That's just true.
We'll see. He's
also like 25. So
the XFL is always hiring.
That is true.
If the NFL doesn't work out.
Biggest news this week for Evans Ravens. Rashad Bateman was removed from the PUP list. He returned to practice today. Still no word on J.K. Dobbins. He's on the PUP list, I believe, but I'm not sure if he's actually
holding
injured
out
or if
something.
that's specifically
He
for the contract.
Yeah,
I thought
he
it was
wants
a mix
contract.
of both, but definitely the contract is playing into
It's
it. But
a non-issue,
Yeah.
right? He's going to play or
He'll be
not
there.
play
Yeah.
and get paid or not get paid. Whatever.
We
Just
still got Gus.
you literally just put the Rashad Bateman news into our show notes,
Yes.
so you want to say something about it.
I mean, just please stay healthy. That's all I want to say. Right?
Yes.
That seems to be
just
Evans'
make it to
weekly
week 1.
plea for the Ravens is
Yes.
please stay healthy. Any other players that you want to beg to stay healthy?
Everybody else. Yeah, all of them.
All right. So Eric's in my former team, the Washington Commanders. Ron Rivera yesterday made some comments about offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, that today he had to walk back. He said, quote, "I put my foot in my mouth yesterday." Basically put Bieniemy and or his players on blast, depending on which way you want to look at it. Either he was criticizing Bieniemy for being too hard on the players, for not being willing to change with the times, to learn how his players best take coaching, unlike former head coaches like himself and Jack Del Rio, who know that you have to give a little bit. Like, these are basically Ron Rivera's words in his, in the longer version of his quotes yesterday. He was talking about how people who have been head coaches in the past know that you have to bend a little bit. You have to make adjustments to your own coaching style based on the players that you're around. And Bieniemy hasn't been a head coach. He doesn't know how to do that. So you could look at it as him very heavily criticizing Bieniemy, or you could look at it as him calling all his players soft for coming and crying to him because Bieniemy's being too tough on them. Whichever way you want to look at it, the Commanders just can't stay out of the news for bad reasons. What is going on here?
Why are you airing dirty laundry in training camp to the press? Like, this is easily handled in-house. This is a minor adjustment for the players and the coach. If anybody needs to make an adjustment, now I'm inclined to say the players need to make an adjustment because Eric Bieniemy is a proven winner and the team is not, and the coach, the head coach, is not, and the defensive coordinator that he cited as supposedly doing it the right way is not a winner.
No.
Eric Bieniemy's the only one that's got rings.
Yeah.
So
The
let's
rest
maybe
of y'all, you ain't got no rings.
yeah, like you're a bunch of nobodies, and frankly, like I said it on the chat. I'm not going to say it in the same colorful language that I used on the chat because we're not allowed to do that here. But Ron Rivera stinks, man. Like this guy sucks. Like I talked about this a few years ago when we hired him. When they hired him, to be clear, that I thought that Dan wouldn't allow him to succeed because that's what Dan does. And I was wrong. Not that Dan, didn't cause problems, but Ron Rivera's failures here, from what I can see, are of his own doing.
Oh, yeah.
He's done a very poor job with this team. Some of the naysayers that you heard come out of Charlotte, Carolina Panthers fans, that said, this guy's not who you think he is, don't get your hopes up. They were right. Yep. He's an average coach at best, and at best is doing a lot of work there. And this is just another example of him not knowing how to handle the basic job of the coach, which is especially in training camp, is you handle the press appropriately, and he couldn't do that. And, it dates back to last year. He squandered the team's playoff chances because he decided to start Carson Wentz even though he was a bum, and everybody knew that Taylor Heineke was the better option because of his own ego. He didn't like Taylor Heineke. And Carson Wentz coming in was his idea, and so he decided to roll with him, and then ended up costing a team a very winnable game against the Cleveland Browns. And then he forgot that they were eliminated. That he just didn't realize, hey, we're toast. Like this guy stinks.
Been fired for that.
Like he should have been fired last year. I think part of this might be the fact that he knows Bieniemy, and even if Bieniemy hasn't said it, Bieniemy's probably thinking it, and everybody in the organization is thinking it. Bieniemy's coming for Rivera's job. Like, Bieniemy didn't take this job with this crappy team, not even necessarily knowing that Dan was going to sell the team, if he didn't think it would lead to an opportunity for him to eventually be promoted to head coach. Like, he wouldn't have done it otherwise. Why would he come here?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it to me it speaks to the dysfunction of the team. Like, why do we know about this? Why is Ron Rivera running his mouth Just look up the street to John Harbaugh, who never says anything important.
Well, he lies, so that's almost
Yeah.
the opposite of which is annoying.
Like
Lamar will be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, he'll be back in a couple weeks.
Look, then suddenly Lamar's on the trading block. Like, what? What happened?
Yeah, just making stuff up. So Ron Rivera, do that maybe. Like, everything's perfect. It's fine, right? Even though the building's burning down behind you, say it's fine, whatever. So, and then the players who said that he's being too tough on us, I'm like, y'all need to get it together, okay?
It's like, you've seen you guys last 20 plus years?
Yeah.
You need a little kick in the rear.
Yeah. Maybe win some games first and then start complaining. How about that?
Yeah. Elsewhere on training camp, for some of these players, it's a training cramp.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, boy.
Last night was the season premiere of Hard Knocks as the HBO show joins the New York Jets. I enjoyed the first episode. It was really fun. It was very Aaron Rodgers centric, which was sort of my worst.
Exactly what he wants.
Which was sort of my worst nightmare going into it. That's what I was kind of nervous that was going to be the case, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy the show, especially if that is the case. So the fact that I enjoyed that side of it kind of surprised me. I enjoyed the funny handshakes that they had. Everybody was kind of fanboying over him, which is like partly annoying to me, but also like he's a really good player. He's still a really good player. He definitely adds something to this organization, so you can understand that. You can appreciate that. It seemed to create a lot of positive energy around a camp that probably would have already had pretty good energy without him, based on how good the defense was last year, how good the offense was outside of Zach Wilson last year. I enjoyed seeing that Zach Wilson seems to be taking everything in stride and is really happy to get a chance to learn behind a really good quarterback. The last little bit of the episode, though, did give me a little bit of cause for concern about this team and Aaron Rodgers, because right now
You're just now having that?
So there's a very specific thing that is causing me some concern, and it came during the Hall of Fame game. Aaron Rodgers very clearly wants to have a chill atmosphere. And up until that point, the atmosphere on camp seemed to be very chill. He was able to kind of control that aspect of everything. But during the game, especially after the first couple of drives when the Jets backups came in and they're not playing all that well, the Browns are getting back into the game, all of the coaches, not just Robert Saleh, but all the coaches are starting to get very pessimistic, and they're criticizing all these plays. Aaron Rodgers is, he seems to be kind of keeping a calm air about his comments, but he's like, it's just the preseason. Like, y'all need to chill out. Let's get some positive energy in here. But it's very clear that this coaching staff is very intense. They're going to be critical of things. They're going to be pessimistic at times about things. And I can already see the darkness at the end of this tunnel, of the end of this honeymoon phase, where Aaron Rodgers is going to be fed up, and all of the excitement that he seems to be having in the press conference, like he's very clearly like in love with his team. If you've watched any Good Morning Football over the past couple of weeks,
I've been at my job, so no.
Well, this has been something that Kyle Brandt has talked about on Good Morning Football. Like, he clearly wants to be in love with the situation, but is he really? Is this just like a little fling? I'm starting to think like that might be what this is. This is not going to last. This coaching staff is going to grate on Aaron Rodgers' nerves, and he's going to either want to get out of there as quickly as possible, or he's going to Mike McCarthy these guys and get them out of their jobs, which would be absurd because this is a pretty good coaching staff.
Uh-huh.
So
Is it though? What's that based
their
on?
coaching staff
I
before? It's an upgrade over whoever they were.
It's definitely an upgrade over who they were before. I think Robert Saleh is a good coach.
Has he really earned that though? Has he earned this status of being a quote-unquote good coach? Because I don't think he has.
What would give you pause on that, Eric?
Well, the fact that it took him so long to bench Zach Wilson in the first place last year.
Who did they have behind him? They didn't have anybody.
They had White Mike.
They did not have anybody who was like, we don't really know what this guy is. Let's kick the tires on him. We know what Mike White is.
And he was better than Zach Wilson.
Marginally.
No, not marginally. He was significantly better.
For a couple of games, and then he was not that good after that.
Because he got hurt. But come
Even
on.
before he got hurt, he
got
was
hurt.
not doing as well.
No, you got to roll with White Mike. Just saying. But I'm just saying, like, Robert Saleh has been the coach. This is his 4th year with the Jets.
No,
Something like that.
No,
I think it is his 4th year. Yeah, he left the 49ers after they lost the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be his 4th season. Like, I haven't seen necessarily a whole lot that makes me say, yeah, that guy's good. Like, I know it's the Jets, and the Jets have been, consistently playing with a weak hand because they're the Jets, but I'm not sold on him as the guy. And if Aaron Rodgers pushes a button on him, I wouldn't say that Rodgers would be unjustified.
he is going into his 3rd season with the Jets.
Okay.
He's been their coach for 2 years.
Okay, I'm still standing by what I said. I don't think he's earned any leverage over the organization. If the Hall of Fame quarterback says this guy's doing too much, get me somebody in here that I actually can respect. I think that Rodgers would have the power over him.
Okay, but we're also talking about a quarterback who is suggesting he'd be open to playing a 2nd season, but has not given any indication he's playing beyond that. You're really going to get rid of a coach that you believe, if you believe in him, you're going to get rid of him for a quarterback that you're going to keep for 2 years?
Okay, but if he can't win in this situation and that comes to a head, then how much can you actually believe in the coach? You just got a Hall of Fame quarterback. You supposedly have all this talent, all these good vibes. If it goes sideways, then the coach needs to be replaced. That's the way it always has worked. I'm not giving Robert Saleh a 4th year if he can't get to the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers on his roster. That's crazy.
I think they're going to make the playoffs this year.
Are you sure?
I don't think they're going to
We'll
make the playoffs. I'm reminded of the GIF of Stephen Colbert eating the
If
popcorn.
Robert Saleh
saying it's gonna
can't
be
get,
disaster, because it is.
Let me put it this way.
You expect otherwise?
If Robert Saleh is that bad of a coach, but this team can't make the playoffs, like this is about the roster itself. If this team can't make the playoffs, then Don Shula could come back and coach the Jets, and they would not make the playoffs because this.
Good luck with that.
That's how good this team is. Anybody should be able to go in there and get this team to the playoffs.
Well, if they don't get there, then what are we saying about Robert Saleh then? He's cooked. He's not going to make it through the season if they don't make the playoffs. I
Then
can
this
guarantee
team
you
is
that.
not as good as we think it is. That's what I would say.
But it's the coach's job to get the team to play up to the level that is expected. And if he doesn't, then he's going to get fired.
That's true.
We shall see.
Aaron Rodgers only went to the Jets for one reason, and it wasn't to play football for the money. It was for attention. So he's going to get plenty of attention.
He's
going
in the
from
right market
Green
for that.
Bay
He's in
to
the right
New York
market.
City.
All the
yeah.
radio shows.
Yeah, all the radio shows and all the little subtle thinking he's smarter than he is sort of quips and stuff. That doesn't help you win football games.
Well, the Jets
So-
line will remind him very quickly that this might not be his best season.
No, this is it's not gonna work out.
Well, I don't know if it's not going to work out, but I will say this. They play the Bills on Monday Night Football to open the season. That seems like a scheduled loss for the Jets.
Yeah,
Sure.
And
it's the Bills.
And they're going to get absolutely slammed in
It's
the
in
New
New
York
Jersey.
Daily News and in the Post and all this crap. The tabloids are going to be writing mean articles about this team. That's when I would like to see the Hard Knocks cameras be around, but they won't be there.
That's
so.
true. So we had a little bit of preseason action last week with the Hall of Fame game. It was the most watched most watched preseason game in history.
Woohoo!
Yeah. 14,
Awesome.
Was it like 14 million viewers, whatever the number was?
What?
Yeah,
People miss
preseason
football.
games are not that highly
People
watched.
miss-
Sounds really low for a
It
football
didn't
game.
It
take
sounds
that
like a lot of people. 14 million people watch that.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
They're
We were one.
So,
hungry.
Yeah, we had the
Oh,
game.
right, we did have it all.
Deshaun Watson did not play in that game. Aaron Rodgers did not play in that game. Watson will play this week against the Commanders. Aaron Rodgers will not play in their second preseason game. Last week we talked about the Texans and how they were not committing to D'Amico Ryans was not committing to who was going to start this week. We did finally get word it is going to be C.J. Stroud starting this week against the Patriots, as it should be. So
It's just all coach speak. Like that's all that was.
Yeah.
It's just a waste of time.
Yep. Of more interest to me is Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles announced that this week against the Steelers, Baker Mayfield is going to start, but then next week against the Jets, it's going to be Kyle Trask starting. So they're kicking the tires with both of those guys.
Trying
Clearly
stuff
don't
out.
know who is
Yeah.
actually going to be the starter week one.
I think the Buccaneers pirate ship is sinking, and they're rearranging the chairs on it because, this doesn't matter at
Playing
all.
violins right now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's just
Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask.
I mean, Baker Mayfield is a this is his fourth team that he's going to be playing on in less than a year, or like he left.
He was on the Panthers last year,
and then he went to the Rams, and then now he's going to be a Buck. But Baker's shown flashes of being an adequate quarterback in the NFL, but those days might be gone. If Kyle Trask had shown anything, he's been on the Buccaneers for 3 years, sitting behind Tom Brady. If he had shown anything, then they would have just given him the starting job.
Right. My take right now on Baker is he's, for the first time in a couple of years, he's getting a full off season with the team because he did sign with them pretty early this off season. Last year, he came into a situation with the Rams where they're missing a lot of players, including their quarterback at the time. On a very short week, he came out and had a good game. Didn't play as well down the stretch, but of course, that's now teams have had a chance to game plan.
Gifted
more for
the
him.
Seahawks a playoff.
So.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
I don't know what to make of Baker Mayfield right now, but I'm willing to at least believe that he might be deserving of the starting spot over there, at least over Kyle Trask.
Definitely
for
over
the
Kyle
reason that Eric
Trask.
just
Give him
mentioned.
10 games.
Kyle Trask didn't light it up at Florida, right? And if the Buccaneers don't know that, 100 miles up the road, then what are they doing?
Yeah, I always ignore the quarterbacks that sucked in college as opportunities for being good in the NFL. Looking at you, Sam Howell or whatever his name is.
Yeah. Mitch Trubisky.
He wasn't. Those guys were not even that good at North Carolina. So what am I getting excited for them in the league?
Some notable
Georgia
injuries
Tech,
from the past week of training camp. I don't remember if we mentioned this last week, but it did happen last Monday and was confirmed on Tuesday. We did the show on Thursday, I believe. But Tim Patrick, Broncos wide receiver, tore his Achilles.
That's tough.
After missing all of 2022 with a torn ACL, opposite legs on the two injuries.
Ouch.
So really bad luck for him. Cardinals running back Marlon Mack just signed with the team on Friday, tore his Achilles yesterday, out for the season.
I didn't even know Marlon Mack was still in the NFL. And
He
now
was
he's not in the NFL
and
anymore.
now will not be for this season at least.
Might be done forever.
Hopefully he got paid,
Yep.
that guaranteed money.
Save that money.
And then a couple other injuries that hopefully are minor but significant players. Dolphins wide receiver Jalen Waddle was injured today during practice, left the field under his own power holding his side. And Jets cornerback Sauce Gardner nursing a quad injury. He did not practice today.
Okay.
Again, hopefully minor injuries. Really important players to both of their teams. And for fantasy purposes, potentially. The Jets could be a fantasy relevant defense this year. Jalen Waddle certainly a fantasy relevant wide receiver. This past weekend, we had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I don't know how much you guys got a chance to watch of the speeches, but I'm wondering if any...
I didn't watch any of it.
I didn't watch any of it.
All right, well, then
We're-
I guess
we're
I'll
Danny
just...
Ocean.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just talk
take it
about
away.
the speeches that stood out to me. Zach Thomas talked about how much he loves his AFC East rival fans. He also had a really emotional moment remembering Junior Seau during his speech. So I appreciated that. DeMarcus Ware likewise brought up Demaryius Thomas and Ronnie Hillman during his speech. A couple of players who have passed over the past year, really sadly. I enjoyed Rondé Barber's speech, but I think probably the funniest moment for him was before his speech began when he and his identical twin brother Tiki Barber went up to reveal his bust, and Rondé made sure to point out that the bust has facial hair that Rondé sports and Tiki does not. So he was like, yeah, that's me, not you. So I enjoyed that. And then, Joe Thomas had a really good speech. I liked his quote, be on time, pay attention, work hard. Those are the 3 tools to success. Yeah.
Well, you should have taught that to the rest of their line.
Yeah. Or maybe to their quarterbacks.
Yeah, their quarterbacks.
All of the
All
different
50,000 of
quarterbacks that he blocks for.
Johnny Manziel himself with the friggin' documentary
The
out.
0.0.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Thomas was such a stud. Over 10,300 consecutive snaps played over his first 10 seasons. Really impressive. So, good Hall of Fame class this year, I think. Before we move on from football, if you want to join our NFL Picks contest this year, you can hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. You can also reach out to us, thesportsballers@gmail.com. Every Wednesday evening, we'll send out the ballot with a list of the games and their spreads that we'll be picking against. We'll be basing our spreads on BetMGM's spreads as of 5 p.m. every Wednesday. If it's a round number, we'll move it to the half point just to avoid any pushes this year. But we're looking forward to that getting started.
I will have to sign up for that.
Yeah,
I'll send you a message.
a regular joiner of those competitions. We do the picks contest every year. We do the NCAA bracket every year, and Sean is always in there, so we appreciate that. Let's go ahead and jump to ESPN The Ocho.
Oh boy.
So Sean watched aptly 8 Ocho of the sports on the Ocho this weekend.
You got your Spanish correct this week.
Yes.
Very nice.
So we'll start with this sport that I think a lot of people have at least heard of over the past year. It's gotten a lot of love from a few prominent sports pages on Instagram and Twitter, most notably ESPN's itself. But for those who have missed it, banana ball. Sean, give me some of the biggest differences in the rules between banana ball and standard baseball so that we can understand what makes this sport so exciting.
Okay, first of all, 2-hour game limit. Or 2-hour time limit. Once the either 9 innings go through or the 2 hours is up, they go into what's called the final inning. Because in banana ball, you do not score. You score points by winning the inning. So, for example,
Are they called points? Please tell me they're not called points.
They're called points.
Well, they wouldn't be called runs if you're going based on the inning score.
So you go
like you won the first inning, you won the third inning, you won the fifth inning, you get three runs.
So 3 points.
No, because you got the runs to win the inning.
Part. That's the part you have a problem with.
Okay. So after the 2 hours or the 9 innings go through, they go to what's called the final inning, and in that inning, all runs count as points. So I kind of like it because it kind of gives if one team's behind by a couple innings, if they're down by like 3 or 4, it's a really good opportunity for them to catch back up. Some of the other rules is if you walk the batter, all 7 other players in the field must touch the ball before it's live. So
they have to pass.
So basically, you pass the ball around.
Run around.
So basically, don't walk anybody. Throw strikes.
It's basically run the batter. You run as fast as you can. Usually, they get a double out of it. But another thing is, if a fan catches a foul ball, it's an out. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, of the 5,
Evan's not in the crowd.
No, I'm not going to catch the ball.
Well, they had a bunch of Evans in the crowd.
Oh dear.
That day. They also had some other kind of fun gimmicks. Like they have grandmas as their cheerleaders, which was kind of entertaining.
They don't dress like football cheerleaders. Though,
Oh no! They it's more like like 19.
was about to have a panic attack over.
It's more like a league of their own.
Okay.
Type of thing.
I
But they also have this nice thing. It's like the foster family of the game, which was really nice, where they highlight foster families that are doing good things. Lots of dances after strikeouts. The ump's chest bump after a strikeout.
So who does the dancing? The guy who struck out or the guy who got the strikeout?
The guy who got the strikeout, the ump.
So the pitcher dances.
Yeah, pitcher dances.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Who does the ump chest bump with?
The other ump in the field.
They
do a
run
running chest bump. Yeah. We also is there was other stuff they have lounge fancy lounge chairs in the dugouts. So you got some players and lazy boys. The mascot is kind of just wandering around the field.
Don't tell Ken Griffey Jr. about the lazy boys in the dugout.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Fall asleep.
All right, so a lot of fun differences between the two. So let me.
So I would say it was very high paced, kind of high paced play, a lot of hits, a lot of runs scored, and just the one knock I do have against it is they do have what's called trick plays where you field the ball, you put it through your legs a couple times, and you throw it to first. This caused some pretty bad errors sometimes where they would try and throw it behind their back and just.
What do the players get for attempting and completing a trick play?
It's just a useless stat that they count.
It just goes in the book. It's like pancakes for alignment. It's just something cool to talk about. It doesn't actually. It's not production. It's just. Hey, you knocked him on his ass.
Just keeping the guy away from the quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, so if you had to pick one rule from banana ball to institute in Major League Baseball without making baseball gimmicky, which one do you think could work for Major League Baseball?
So the one that could work.
Or is the answer none? That's a
It's
fair
like it
answer.
does. Yeah, it's like I'm not sure if any of the rules would work. I would say almost say the time limit, but that wouldn't work because teams could just.
We're
already
already
fixed that.
seeing.
Yeah.
We already kind of fixed that. Like we've had games
Yeah.
this season in Major League Baseball that have been under 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like not even like with the we go into the final inning at the 2 hour mark. Like we've
The
actually
game is
games
over.
that are
Yep.
over at that point. So.
Yeah, so it's like I don't really think any of the rules like would adapt, but it's great on its own.
Okay.
Because its own thing. It's very entertaining for everybody.
Fair enough. You also watched the American Cornhole Championship. Everybody knows cornhole, and most of us have played it at some point. All of us have played it, I think, at some point, but most of us, in our audience have probably played it at some point. And if I remember correctly, I think we were watching some of it last year in the hotel room when we were in North Carolina for my bachelor party weekend. So, we all know how it works. We know that it's definitely more fun to play than it is to watch. But were there any interesting competitors who were in the American Cornhole Championship? Because I think that's more interesting than talking about the game itself.
What, like they have like wrestling backstories or something like that?
Well, like
They come
last year, Chumley from Pawn Stars was on it.
They had like a little promo with Chad Ochocinco on the Ocho throwing some cornhole.
Okay.
So that was fun. But like in terms of the competitors, I'm pretty sure I've seen most of these guys outside of Wawa or Sheets. I mean, it's a league sponsored by Bush's Baked Beans and Corn Nuts. So you get what you get.
Sounds appropriate for cornhole.
But I enjoy sports where I'm on the same, athletic level as the competitors.
Yeah, it's like watching
So-
curling. It's just like four dads just end up in the Olympics.
I'll say
somehow.
it's very chill. It's kind of calming to watch, though.
Okay. Fair enough. Table hockey. When I saw this on your list, I was like, really? This made the I have to assume that this is not even as entertaining as like Daniel LaRusso beating Ali in table hockey in the first Karate Kid movie.
Well, firstly, he's an idiot for not letting her win.
He is an idiot for not
That
letting her
that was
win.
really stupid. And secondly, all right, let me ask for a clarification here. This
is not air hockey. This
it's
is
table hockey. So it's
with,
like
the actual players in the sticks.
It's like
yes.
the thing like the foosball but with hockey.
So yes, if you've watched the first Karate Kid movie when they're playing, it's not
Yeah,
air
it's not-
hockey.
yeah.
It's the actual there's a little black puck and
Yeah.
you turn the players to hit it with their stick.
Even so, Ali should have won because Danielson should have let her win.
Yes,
But,
he should have. That's what you do on a first date.
Yeah,
Come on. This is elementary.
Well, clearly he loved. So
I'll say it was
Not
hilarious.
taught in Jersey elementary schools, apparently.
I'll say it was chaotic, but also kind of hilarious because just when they're trying to block the other guys, just spinning their hockey guys around.
they should have a no spinny rule.
Well, is it one-on-one, or are there multiple people on each team?
It's one-on-one, so it's kind of
Okay.
interesting to see them work like all 4, 5, 6 levers, whatever it is, like behind the scenes. But the guy.
It definitely is like a skill. Like I suck at
It's-
foosball. I'm terrible at it.
It definitely takes some skill, but I'm pretty sure this championship was at like the back of some bar. I think there's 20 people there. And the guy who won was this guy named King Carlo, who had a crown. And he looked.
He played in the crown, or he crowned himself after he won.
Oh, it was like part of his gimmick. But
Does he walk out with like a crown on? With the,
he
that's King Carlo's music,
Oh yeah, he had like his personalized jersey and a crown that he wore. But he also looks like somebody who would.
It was a personalized hockey jersey, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it was a hockey jersey. But it was. These guys were definitely like most of the competitors, and they're in like maybe late 40s, and this is the best thing going for them.
How much of
I
a
guess
spectator
late
sport is that?
late 40s is like your prime in table hockey.
Probably. I don't think I've ever seen a table.
Maybe
hockey.
you're at that age. You're just you're so despondent because you couldn't play a real sport, so you just said, "Let me try this, and maybe I can get on TV." You just lose all shame at that age.
I will say some of the long shots were pretty fun. Like there were some like almost full court shots that they made in. That was pretty entertaining. But overall it's just a bunch of little spinning hockey dudes.
So the next sport that you got a chance to watch was probably the one that most people, if anybody was aware that the Ocho was doing its programming, this past weekend, they probably were seeing the promos for Slam Ball. I'm sure that you have some stuff to talk about with that. The only question that I have before you get into your spiel is, were there any injuries? Because how could there not be?
I did not see any bad injuries. I'll say that. Like, some guys got banged up a little bit. Maybe like they have padding everywhere next to the trampolines. So like, it's sometimes some guy would kind of fall a little hard. Maybe get a little bruised up. But no, there was no like gruesome. No
injuries. Like permanent.
No
long-term injuries.
Yeah, no like long-term injuries.
Yeah, I don't understand how that sport really works in terms of like, is there dribbling?
There is dribbling, but there's not like possessions are kind of interesting because like if you dribble, you go in and you don't shoot it or anything because you're being blocked out. They have to throw it against the wall to basically reset the possession, and then they can dribble again.
Dribbling just seems like it'd be so chaotic. Like, you're on trampolines, so like if you're standing on a trampoline, anybody who's been on one knows that like the trampoline is not flat. Once you're on it, like
it's not all trampolines.
Yes,
though.
No. So
like
there's
spots.
four trampolines by the basket, so you don't dribble on the trampoline.
Do you have to dribble between every trampoline as you're going?
It's not really clear, but a lot of people they dribble.
Do you have to dribble?
I think at some point you have to dribble. At some point during the possession, when you're crossing.
Well, so it's like the NBA then,
land.
with their gather stuff.
No, you're just an old man and don't know the rules. That's your problem.
As I say, the admin on Twitter joked
James
that they
Harden,
don't even
you
know.
have to dribble at some points, just once.
But one of my favorite parts though, was like just the guys like going up, the guy trying to dunk and the other guy trying to block him. Like they have some really good defenders there. Because you'd think like, a guy going full speed at the basket, he's just going to bowl over the defender. But now the defenders were going up and, swatting shots out of the air.
Well, they're on trampolines too,
yeah.
so, get up there and intercept it, man.
Yeah, it was like a lot of kind of like interesting timing and stuff. Because sometimes if they block one shot, the other guy, another teammate comes in from the back and just slams it in.
Yeah.
But
ball.
it's a fun, chaotic sport. And it seems to get, a lot of support from, past current NBA players and just everybody from all
Were
different
there
sports.
any current, well, not current, I'm sure, but any past NBA players who played?
Crazy.
I don't think there were any current or former NBA players
too
in the league.
old.
No Marlon Humphrey, no Amari Stoudemire.
Yeah, no.
Marlon Humphrey.
Well, the two of them are getting. I bring them up because they're being inducted into the.
No, Marlon Humphrey's a cornerback for the Baltimore
Wait, who am I
Ravens.
thinking
You're thinking
of?
Sean Marion.
Sean
probably.
Marion.
What?
Wow, I mixed those two up.
I don't know.
I do know
Evan
a lot
Burns,
of.
your Marlon Humphrey's like,
I do know a lot of.
everyone would have conniptions if Marlon Humphrey was playing slam ball.
I do know a lot of former players have like visited the training camps and participated in some of the practices.
That's nice. My first introduction, or that's redundant. My introduction to slam ball, I actually thought it was completely fake. Was on an episode of One Tree Hill, where if you're familiar with that show, it's about basketball players, and one of the guys was drafted in the NBA but suffered a back injury, and teams weren't really interested in signing because they weren't sure he was healthy. So he played slam ball to prove that his body could handle the physicality of basketball by playing this even more brutal version of basketball. And I was like, okay, but that's not real. And then there's like slam ball leagues. I'm like, they made that up after the show, right? It's like, no, they didn't. It's for real.
It was, I believe, 2003 to 2004 was like they had 1.5 seasons. It was on Cartoon Network, and I loved it.
They had like an XFL run.
Yep, pretty much.
The OG XFL
the OG,
run.
the OG XFL.
They hate me.
Yeah.
So next is extreme axe and knife throwing. Now, I've watched axe throwing before. I've gone axe throwing myself, and it's a lot of fun. I'm a little scared to ask. What makes it extreme?
I was trying to figure that out myself. It was just kind of, nice little lazy tosses of axes. They had two-person teams throwing axes at the same time, and you basically, I think, try and get it as close to the middle as you can.
Wait, so two people throwing the axe at the same time as each other?
Yep. So one has to throw overhand, one has to throw underhand.
That would feel extreme to me because if they touch each other in any way, like they may not actually lodge themselves into the board. They could bounce back and you can get hurt.
Well, they were like
that's extreme enough for me.
Yeah. It was they had like other stuff. It was kind of like different ones. They had like small axes and they used large axes and then knives and stuff. But it was The most extreme part was definitely in the name.
Okay. The next sport, I actually had to look up just to make myself aware of what in the world this was. Women's Omega Ball. So I did not know Omega Ball is soccer with 3 teams playing on one field, each with a goalie defending their own goal.
That sounds awesome, actually.
So
I assume that you can... It actually does sound pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
So I have a few questions actually
Okay.
about this one because I'm actually intrigued. I assume that you can send the ball into either of your opponent's goals to score for your team.
Yep.
But I'm curious about the strategy. Like, is there any cooperation between players on opposing teams when you're in the area of a third team's goal, or at least to get the ball into an area of a third team's goal? Like, I'm especially interested in situations where one team might have a multi-goal lead on the other two. I would assume it becomes in those teams' best interest to work together at least a little bit just to get it into the other team's third of the field.
So it was definitely a little bit of 2 teams working together, at least to get their points up while keeping the third team at 0 or 1. So there was definitely a little bit of co-op, but for the most part, it was just every team for themselves, just trying to. I think there was 1 goalie and you get 4 or 5 players.
Okay.
So it was chaos. It was fun.
How big is the field that they play on? Is this at all similar to the size of a regulation hockey pitch or soccer pitch? Gee,
So
hockey.
I'd say
All over
What
the
am I
place, man.
doing?
I would say it's about a third, maybe a third to a half size of a normal soccer field.
You're self-reporting that because
one thing-
I was on it. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting is they have a lot of extra balls along the side because one thing is the ball flies out of bounds all the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
it has
and yeah, they had at least.
to. How do they
50
decide who throws it in?
So I think they have let's see, I think it's
And do they have
Right.
corner kicks?
yes.
Who do
so
they
have-
decide which team gets to kick the corner kick? Because the whole thing about a corner kick is it means that the defending team was the last to touch the ball when it went out of bounds along the goal line. How do they decide which team gets to attempt the corner kick?
So it's the corner kicks. So it's sort of there's dots kind of between.
I don't like soccer at
Yeah.
all, but
Yeah.
I know how soccer works.
So
It's not a complicated
so pretty
game.
much
It's not a complicated game at all.
along the circle in between each goal, there's a tiny circle, or every time it goes out of bounds, they get a ball there for a free kick.
Okay.
And my guess is it's whoever the closest
Which of the other
team, whoever the closest team to the person who kicked it out was.
Okay.
So the
That-
more
that's fair.
sort of the aggressor in that situation gets credit for the corner
Yeah.
kick. Okay, that makes sense.
That's fair. I mean,
So,
that's kind
it
of
was-
like in hockey with icing, where you just whichever team has the players closer down, further down the ice.
Well, yeah. Otherwise, there's no icing.
Right.
If
I'll
you have
say.
to the team that iced the puck
Yeah.
has to beat the other team down the ice to prevent it from being called icing.
Yep.
I'll say though.
Okay.
Super fun, lots of action, and I didn't see one flop, which I love.
I definitely appreciate that.
That's definitely a plus.
Bull shooter.
So-
I know that this is darts. Yeah. Is it just darts? Why not call it darts? What makes this any different from are they scoring it differently?
My guess is that's either the brand of dartboard that they're using, or just the game, or just the brand of the game. But-
So then my next
darts.
question is
Yeah, just darts.
So my next question is, and I mean this with all the love in the world, Sean. Why did this make your list of sports to watch? Why did you waste your time watching this? Because everything else here seems at least remotely entertaining.
This was the last thing I watched of the night before I went to bed.
Okay. It was just
12:30.
on.
Yeah, after that I was like, okay, I'm going to bed now.
This is why you didn't stay up for cheese roll because this
Yeah.
is so boring. It put you
Yeah,
to
it was
sleep.
at 2 a.m. I was not staying up for cheese roll.
All right, so let's move on past that to the last sport, which is Red Bull Rapids. And it seems like in this sport, the competitors make their own crafts
Yep.
to race down the rapids in. Some of them can be fairly ordinary or not ordinary at all. So I want to know what were some of the most entertaining vessels that you saw people launching onto the course.
So I guess the first one I saw was literally a refrigerator box with pool noodles and an inflatable duck taped to it.
inflatable
I was like,
duck.
somehow they made it through the course.
That seems pretty damn entertaining. Did anything top it?
Oh, that one, I'll just say it's like that was the one where I was like, I can't believe that made it down. Okay, there was also one.
Do some of the vessels not make it down the course?
Oh, there were quite a few that capsized.
I want to know about some of those, but first I want to know like the best ones that you saw.
Best
overall.
one was all right. There was also one that was a raft that was shaped like a flamingo.
Pink duck.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was like a little flamingo raft. What all the teams do is beforehand they do a little skit. So they were doing some little like ballerina dance dressed as flamingos. It was great.
Nice.
So that one made it through. Let's see. There was one that was a rocket ship that like NASA shape. They had everybody was dressed as astronauts. It was good. Unfortunately, they capsized like 3/4 of the way down.
They made it a decent way down.
Yeah, they made it a decent way down.
What were some of like the worst ones like that capsized immediately?
Well, that would be the one that was toilet shaped. It was like a
The
giant
toilet-shaped one went to craps, which was
Yep, and the skit
make sure.
that the team was dressed like turds, like the poop emoji, and their sketch was they had people with little flies on a stick buzzing around them. Then they got in their craft, made it about 10 feet, and then capsized.
went down the bowl.
Yep.
Sounds like a premature flush to me.
Yeah.
My goodness.
But I will say that it's like it has moved into my 2 spot for favorite weird sport. It is toppled cheese wheel racing for my 2 spot because it's entertaining and it's a good time. Like it's very creative. Like all the competitors, you have to build your own raft, come up with the skit, and then face a rapid river.
Nice.
Yeah, it's multi-part thing.
How is it a competition? How do they score this?
So they had judges that kind of scored them based on like how their craft finished and how based on their sketch, their creativity of their craft, and then how they if they actually finished.
Okay.
So
So a little bit of subjectivity to it,
Yeah.
which that's like one of my least favorite things about it. Those kinds of sports, but definitely entertaining
it's
for
like
sure.
very entertaining. And if you made it down, some of these crafts like they made it down, like they actually finished. It's like how. Like you're like 3/4 sank.
What was the most surprising one to actually make it?
The cardboard pool noodle inflatable duck one.
How many people were on it?
2. So their teams of 2.
So this is the refrigerator one. It
Yeah.
wasn't actually like a solid thing. It was a cardboard.
Oh yeah, no, it was like a
shaped like a refrigerator.
Yeah.
How many
like
people were in it?
So there are teams of 2
Okay.
that go down. There was, I think, another one it looked like a beach setting, but it was like basically like a long raft with like beach chairs and like an umbrella on it.
Okay.
That capsized pretty quick too.
All right. So that is any last words on the Ocho to leave us with?
I got a last gripe with it.
Oh, no.
This entire thing, the Ocho, only exists because of a movie called Dodgeball. Where's the dodgeball, man?
That was midnight on night 1.
Okay, all right.
So they
I
did
was just
have.
So they did
Yeah,
have
yeah, they do.
dodgeball. Okay.
Yeah, they do have dodgeball, but I think they scheduled it for like midnight of the first night, which was
Okay.
like Thursday. So
That's a really good question.
Yeah, I was like,
appreciate that.
wait a second, where's that's why we're here is because of dodgeball. But
yeah, those were just the sports I watched while I was awake.
gotcha. Okay, so there was dodgeball. That's all I needed to hear.
Dodgeball is the marquee event.
Excellent. Okay.
So let's move to some college sporting news. We're also getting close to college football here, and we got some news this past week about conference realignments. Now, I don't know if this was Evan or Eric who put this in here. I'm assuming
Probably me.
this was Evan, but Evan wants us to all keep in mind that this is not some cataclysmic event in college sports. It's been happening for decades. The Big East expanded, and then it disappeared, fell apart to its current incarnation, all because of football. We had teams who left the Big East, including Georgia Tech in 1979, Florida State in 1991, Miami in 2004, Virginia Tech also in 2004, Boston College in 2005, Syracuse in 2013, Pittsburgh in 2013, Louisville in 2014. who none of them were founding members. They all joined the Big East and then left.
Joined the ACC and then left. Yeah. Never mind. Just
Joined
keep
the
going.
Big East and then left.
Yeah.
Some of them to the ACC, and some of those teams have also left the ACC. Notre Dame was a full member in 2020 because of the pandemic and then left. So none of this is necessarily permanent for all time, but clearly this appears to be the death of the Pac-12. We're down to 4 teams in the conference: Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah. So let's first talk about some of these moves. Not all of these are going to take effect this year. These changes take effect in the 2024 football season, which makes this year sort of an awkward lame duck year. This year, the Big 12 is going to have Texas and Oklahoma, TCU, Kansas State, Baylor, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Texas Tech, Iowa State. They'll be adding for this year Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU. And then after that, they will also add
Texas and Oklahoma are leaving after this year.
Right. Texas and Oklahoma will leave the Big 12 after this year to join the SEC.
But then Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah are coming into the Big 12.
You like moved all of my stuff around.
I
so
did move
couldn't
it
find where I was on my notes. But yes, after this year, Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah will join. So I'm sorry. Who are the teams who are remaining in the Pac-12? Where do I have them? Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Stanford are the last 4 standing.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Currently.
Again, things are mixed up in here. So that's the Big 12. Then you have the Big 10, where Oregon and Washington voted this past week to leave the Pac-12 to join the Big 10. They joined UCLA and USC, who made the same move back in late June. So the Big 10 will eventually be the Big 18, which actually kind of works for their logo. You know, B18 also looks sort of like a BIG.
I just call them the big. I don't
Yeah,
even
the big.
bother with how many teams are there. It doesn't matter.
I mean, counting isn't really a thing in the Big 12 or the Big 10.
Yeah, for the longest
for
time,
a
there
long
was
time.
10 teams in the Big 12 and 12 teams in the Big 10.
Well, it was only for 2 years. But
That happened though. Like, it's insane.
Can we get rid of Rutgers? Can we trade Rutgers for?
Could vote somebody off the island.
Yeah.
Swap them out for Notre Dame. Is that what you want to do?
Well, I wouldn't count on that, not being a thing in the future, but
Yeah.
it's certainly not going to happen right now.
Yeah.
So the first question we have to ask is, what about the rivalries and the traditions?
Well, yeah, what about them?
It doesn't
What's gonna
spell
happen?
money.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Next question.
No, it definitely matters.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
How does it matter? Maryland was in the ACC for 60
isn't
years.
that what people
and they
say
just
makes
went up the
college
road.
football better than the NFL?
Yes,
the
exactly.
rivalries and traditions.
Yes.
Without that,
Yes.
it's
But that has
already
nothing to do with any of these
It's
moves.
already in reality an inferior product. Now I don't even know
Yes.
if it is a product.
Is
it even a product without those?
You ask anybody for the period of time where the Big Ten was divided up into leaders and legends, and they put Michigan and Ohio State on opposite ends of the conference, so they weren't guaranteed to play every year. That was an abomination. That can't happen.
They
okay.
fixed that.
Yes, they
They
went out of their way to
had
fix
to
that.
fix it.
They overloaded the East with all the good football schools just to fix that. So, it's the idea that it's like, oh, the answer to everything is money. Well, if you keep pushing that, you keep getting greedy, you're going to hit a point where you have a diminishing return on your product. And that's going to cause you to spiral downhill. This happens with every single product in the history of the United States. Nothing lasts forever, and you are pushing it off the cliff quicker than it normally would. 100% believe that.
With that said, Texas A&M went to the SEC and made a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, and
Expanded their stadium by, double.
And how are they doing? Are they relevant? They're overpaying some bum coach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
and they're not winning
making-
any games.
Usually how it goes.
Yeah, so what happened to them?
I mean, well, Texas isn't back either.
No, they're not, and they're coming to the SEC as well.
Where they're going to get whooped as
They're,
well.
they're going to get beat on too. Like, my concern is, again, rivalries, whatever. You can schedule a rivalry game out of conference, right? Like, if they really want
Unless
to.
your conference is too big.
Yeah, in this case it is. That's part of a legitimate question I do have is you have 18 teams in the Big Ten. How the hell are you going to schedule everybody? You got 8 conference games. Like, do you just play only
Big
half the
Ten
league?
plays 9, but
I mean, whatever. It's just it's gonna be nuts. My big
college football.
Yeah, but
always nuts.
my big concern though is this is all about money for a lot of these schools. Namely, Maryland joined the Big Ten because they wanted to get on that football cash. Same thing with the Ruger.
Claiming that they were going to be able to use that cash to bring back some sports that they had recently cut. And
That was obviously
Well,
fiction.
Yeah.
But so the whole point was money for Maryland, money for Rutgers, and the Big Ten likes to bring them in because DC is a big market, New York's a big market, right? Even if Rutgers stinks, there's a lot of people from New York City that like them some Rutgers, and they'll watch them play crappy football. Same thing with the Terps. So, but what happens when the teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, the big money makers, realize some of these other teams in the conference are dead weight, and we're giving them our money, and they decide to form a super league and just put all the powerhouses in one and leave all the bums out? That's
that
like
wouldn't surprise me because
Yeah.
that's basically what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Like,
But half-
it's just the second iteration of the
okay,
process.
but now half the college football world is just sitting on their ass with no league to play in and no value. That hurts the product. The whole point of college football is you got 1 billion games going on, and even though they don't really matter because only one team holds the trophy, they are all supposed to matter. We're all supposed to care about this. And suddenly we're not going to care about it anymore if this type of thing goes this way.
the other question we have to ask, and I mean, it's put in SpongeBob fonts in our document, but like I think that this is a really valid question. What about the athletes? Missouri football coach Eli Drinkwitz, which by the way, I love that last name.
That's a fantastic
Great
name.
last name. I really appreciate the comments that he made because he didn't make it just about the football. Like the football players are going to be fine, but when you're dealing with now all these schools that are even they're spread out over the entire country from the East Coast to the West Coast now. You've got players playing softball, baseball, all these non-revenue generating sports that are now going to have to make those trips across country to play against their conference opponents. They don't get to fly, in whatever, in nicer planes or whatever the football team gets access to.
Chartered flight.
They don't get chartered flights. They're flying coach class.
Spirit
They're
Airlines.
at best. They're getting in, back to campus from these games at 1, 2 in the morning, and then expected to go to class the next day. And he brought up the fact that, this could also lead to an increase in mental health issues for those athletes because they're going to have less sleep. Like that's one of the leading causes of mental illness is a lack of sleep.
Those are all good points, but none of them were considered in this conference realignment at all.
Well, and that's exactly why it's worth asking because these are the things that are not being considered by the people who are making these decisions.
But even the players that play revenue-generating sports, you now have a very realistic case to say they're effectively playing like professionals. They have a professional travel schedule.
100%. Yeah.
And you've expanded the college football playoff. It's going to be, 12 teams soon
12
enough?
teams next year.
Yeah, so
2023 or 2024?
After the 2024 season, it'll be 12 teams.
Okay.
yeah, so
This is the 12th season of 4 teams.
yeah,
Okay,
so
sure.
they're going to expand that. So that means even more games are going to have to be pushed in towards where players are supposed to be in class, right? Like the whole point of bowl season was that it was after classes ended. It was during the holiday portion of the year. And I know that we're not here to play school, but that's the ruse, right?
Yep.
That's the gimmick has been, well, these are student athletes. That's our excuse not to actually pay them. Well, now you're telling them, hey, buddy, you can't actually take your final because we got to go and make us some money playing Stanford across the country or something like that. It gets more and more insane, and it gets more and more unconscionable not to pay these athletes. We're not talking NIL where they have to go find their money.
Right.
No,
We're talking
you
the
need
schools
to pay
come
them.
in. Yes.
Yes.
The schools need to be shelling out at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear how they can't afford it either. Right?
During the pandemic, when supposedly everybody was losing their shirt, how many programs managed to buy out their coach's buyout?
Well,
so
Miami
many of them.
in particular,
Yeah.
they fired their football coach because their hospital was making so much money during the pandemic that they just had extra cash to send the football
for-profit
coach up the
healthcare.
road. Imagine that.
Let's
right?
fire the coach
There's
with our
just
pandemic money.
People dying in a box down the street, but we can fire the football coach now.
Yeah, but it happens across the board too. It's just like everybody always has money to fire the coach when they want to fire him. So that's not really. Oh, you can't cry poverty here when we understand everything that we have discussed has been done for one reason only, and that's to make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So you can't tell me, oh, but we're broke. No, you're not. You've made this entire delightful mess that is college football right now because of money. So pay up.
Yes.
So the Pac-4 is now down, or Pac-12 is now down to 4. Again, we said Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Stanford. I've seen some stuff about like what should San Diego State do because they're in the Mountain West, and there's been some stuff about like they're not in the Mountain West anymore and they owe the conference a bunch of money. And then there's actually they're never left. They're still part of the Mountain West. Like that conference can't figure out what to do.
Can we just talk about?
But there's been some conversation. Like maybe they should go to the Pac and like join that conference. But like,
Can
What conference?
we talk about how ridiculous it is that San Diego State is in the Mountain West? Yeah. Like, come on. What's going on
They're
here?
in the West, right?
But they're not in the mountains. There's no mountains in San
Creighton is
Diego.
in the Big East, and Omaha, Nebraska is neither east nor big.
No, it's
so
not. Yes.
what's the deal with that?
I don't think I even
sense.
knew that Creighton was in Nebraska.
I didn't know that either, actually. I knew that Nebraska was in Nebraska, and I knew that they stink.
Yes, they're bad.
So there's a bunch of question over what could happen to the Pac-12, but what should Stanford and Cal do at this point?
Find a new conference. They've got brands, right? Like,
No.
I mean, at this point, Stanford's athletics have already been sort of going downhill a little bit as far as football and men's basketball anyway.
but
so
that's cyclical though. That could pick back up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like they've been bad for 25 years. They've got current NFLers. They've got soon-to-be Hall of Fame NFLers and Richard Sherman, right? Like they have a profile. It's not like they're just damned to be bad forever. They've got an athletic profile. They've got some of the greatest college football players of all time in their history. They should be in a real conference. Like that's part of what made Stanford cooler than all the other nerd schools was the fact that they were actually good at sports.
I gotta wonder how like Oregon State and Washington State feel. Like everybody wants Oregon and Washington, but not the state school.
Well, yeah, that's
That's what they get for
that's
being the
part of
state
it.
school.
Yeah.
Adley Rutschman and Klay Thompson can have a sad together over that.
What should the ACC do at this point?
They just pray. They're cooked.
Yeah, the ACC.
Just cry.
I feel like the ACC's hanging on by a thread, but apparently it's not.
Hanging on by a basketball dimple because that's really all
Basketball
it's
dimple.
good for now is basketball.
They let Georgia Tech win the conference a couple years ago, so how good are they really
That
doing?
happened. It did happen.
That's true.
Yeah, it happened. It was on television. You should have seen it. It's. I mean, like the rest of college football and college sports, it's a giant mess. And I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
Was it a TV contract with ESPN through 2036?
Yes, 2036, and
Never,
I think it's
signed
like
that long of a deal.
That's
No
a
way.
fake year.
Yeah.
That's not real. Yeah. Like,
the
my
world almost
program will be
ended
over
already.
in 2036.
Yeah. So
The way that the global warming is going and all these insane storms we're getting, we might
particularly
be
the
on
coastal
back.
schools,
But
right?
they could just sell
underwater.
their homes, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they just threw
Yeah,
a
exactly.
dirt board.
The Atlantic Coast Conference. The
Exactly.
coast is going to be gone.
Yeah.
I think they just wrote down a random number. 36.
They got a
Okay,
really-
there we go.
So I think it's like $120 million to try to leave early.
Yeah, it's like a little
It
poison
might be
pill.
worth it because
Yeah.
you can re-up your deal.
Yeah, but there will be lawyers, of course.
Yeah.
When
Terps
Maryland
were
left
supposed
the
to pay.
ACC, it
Terps
was
were
all a bunch
supposed
of
to.
money.
Yeah, Terps were supposed to pay y'all $50 million. They only paid like $20.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the problem is. They need to go collect the other
That's what
30.
the
But they
lawyers are
couldn't.
for.
They
Yeah.
lost in court over that.
Oh, okay.
Maryland somehow weaseled out of that.
I feel like when you're talking about like the college sports economy of the NCAA, like $30 million is not going to make a difference
really
for the
not that much.
ACC.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No,
That's
no,
not
it's
gonna
a
help
drop
keep
in the
them
bucket.
It's like,
afloat.
It was supposed
like a
to keep.
practice.
The purpose was to make it prohibitive for Maryland to leave.
Right.
And Maryland didn't care because one,
They
the
broke
Big Ten
anyway,
money is better,
apparently.
and two, they somehow knew they were going to be able to swerve that and cut it to $20 million.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where things stand on the conference realignment. We'll be talking college football intermittently as we get into the actual season. Let's jump to the sport that right now we are in mid-August. A month and a half away from the playoffs in Major League Baseball.
Playoffs.
Yeah. Let's start, instead of going with our teams first, let's end with our teams. Tim Anderson versus Jose Ramirez.
I forgot
Fight!
about this is a full-blown hockey fight on a baseball field. That was the best part. Like, normally when you see dudes that get into a brouhaha in baseball, on the rare occasion that it's not just a hold me back bro fest, like, it's just wild swings and stuff. There's not really any focus.
Just big
Here,
pile
It was wild swings on Jose Ramirez's
but he
part.
won the fight.
He did win the fight, but he got very lucky to land that punch.
Better be lucky
They
than
call
good.
It's called a street fight, man.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson legit dropped the gloves, if you will. Like in hockey, you
Well, he
see
dropped
players,
one glove.
They
He
dropped
threw
their
it
sticks.
down.
They threw the gloves on. He squared up like he was going to box him, which was his first and last mistake because he didn't seem to understand this ain't a boxing ring. It's a street fight.
Yeah.
So you better protect yourself, and he didn't. He got caught with a wild swing and got
Folded.
knocked out.
Let's start at the beginning here because I watched the replay of the fight itself and the play leading up to it, and I could not understand why did they get into the fight in the first place.
It seems
question.
to me like Anderson was standing on second base. Ramirez slid head first into the bag. And maybe Ramirez felt that Anderson was not making enough haste to stop straddling over him. And he wanted to stand up, and Anderson was in his way. That's the only thing I could really determine. I mean, it seemed to me.
I think that's it.
To me, it felt like these two dudes hate each other because Tim Anderson's obnoxious and Jose Ramirez ain't about that life, and they're in division rivals. They've seen each other quite a bit. And division,
Big rivalry right
division
there.
rivals.
Ooh.
Hey, man, it doesn't.
Third and fourth place.
So you're telling me that a baseball rivalry between third and fourth place might be better than a college football rivalry this season?
It's possible.
Yeah.
There's no college football rivalries left, man. Like we're just cooking them all up. But that seemed to be the impetus for the fight. And of course, Jose Ramirez seems like, normally he seems like a pretty chill guy, but he's also a pretty intense ball player. And Tim Anderson strikes me as a guy who gets on a lot of people's nerves. And this probably, got on his nerves. And Tim didn't back down. And Tim was the one that started the fight. Like, let's be
Yes.
clear.
Yep.
Like, I know that, Ramirez kind of pointed at him and put his finger near his face or whatever. Anderson's the one that said, okay, gloves off, we're going to fight. And that's why he got 6 games and, adding insult to injury because he decidedly lost the fight, got knocked out cold on the ball field, was wobbling back to the dugout,
Yes.
just completely punch
There's
drunk.
baby
I mean,
legs.
I don't know what else to say other than Anderson got what he deserved here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's beclowned himself over the last couple of years. He endeared himself to baseball when he was hitting dingers and throwing the bat and being all let the kids play type of stuff, but
Hit that walk-off home
this-
run in the Field of
hitting the
Dreams
corn,
game.
that was awesome against your Yankees, Corey. But yeah, it's just this was not. He hasn't been that guy. He's had a bad season, and this wasn't the way to handle having a bad season. Just, you square up and you lose a fight. That's just you'll never live that down.
Yeah.
You got your ass whooped
Nor
on
should
national
you.
TV.
Yep.
Our
Like,
shows
no
are-
matter what you do in your career now, this is what you're going to be remembered for.
Yeah, ask Jordan Poole,
Yep.
right? Like,
That's Jose Bautista.
yeah,
yeah.
and Bautista Bautista did not even get it as bad as Tim Anderson got it.
Yeah.
Like Bautista wobbled, but he at least was
Yeah.
able to
Well, his
stand up.
stood up.
sunglasses went flying.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he did. He got caught, but Tim Anderson was on his cheeks.
Yep.
In the dirt.
Yeah.
Just
Saw
laying
him
there.
get hit
Just
in
like,
the- like
Yeah.
a tree.
He went full ragdoll.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about my Yankees. We'll start with me because we are we're not in last place in the East anymore. We are half a game ahead of the
Nice.
the Red Sox.
Ooh, all right.
Alrighty. Play the Jeffersons theme,
Yeah, moving on up. Here we go. The Yankees are 3-3 since our last show. They beat the White Sox 7-1 last night, thanks to a solid start by Clark Schmidt and really good bullpen outings by Michael King and Jonathan Loaiza. Michael King went, I think, 2 2/3 last night, scoreless. Monday, during the first game of the White Sox series, Yankees lost 5-1. Aaron Boone lost his mind, and it was as entertaining as we've come to expect when Aaron Boone loses his mind with the umps.
This is a good one.
This
That
was
was
a
good.
good one.
Yeah.
This is a good one. He's been kind of turning things around the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've actually had a couple of fun moments to talk about with Aaron Boone. He
So
was
you're
on
gonna
John Boy, and
So you're going to keep him, right? Stick around.
now I'm just confused. I
Run
don't
it
know what
back
to
another
think.
year.
My
Joe
brain's going-
Girardi is available.
My brain's going around. Oh God, I don't want Joe Girardi back. So let's see. Aaron Boone, he drew lines in the dirt with his fingers. He imitated Laz Diaz's strikeout call. Just generally threw a fit, and he was absolutely justified in doing so. According to ump scorecards, Laz Diaz had an overall accuracy rate under 90% for the game, which is 5.2% below the expected average rate.
That is brutal.
And his calls favored the White Sox. I don't know how they determine ump runs created, but it favored the White Sox by approximately 1.59 runs. Now, Yankees lost 5-1. 4 is greater than 1.59 the last time that I took a math class. So ultimately, you would assume, you would say this did not play into the final outcome, and it's likely that is the case. That said, I still understand and appreciate Aaron Boone's frustration, because when calls are going against you more than they're going against the other team, that can also just exacerbate a situation. It can play into your own mentality. You're like, man, like, I'm just not even going to get a call. So like, what am I doing here today? Even so, I understand that frustration, and I appreciate him going out there, and I definitely enjoyed the
That was great.
the overall tantrum.
10 out of 10
It was
tantrum.
great.
Excellent tantrum.
Other than that, not really a whole lot to report on the Yankees from the past week. Another week back for Aaron Judge, and he's doing okay since his return. His batting average has dropped from 291 to 284 since his return, but his OBP has risen from 404 to 413. The biggest drop has been in his slugging. Even after last night's home run, his slugging percentage has dropped from 674 prior to his injury to 639 now. So that's a drop of 35 points in his slugging percentage, which it's
It'll
a
come
long
back up.
season. You're gonna have dips anyway over the course of a long season, but just still kind of working his way back into things. So we'll go ahead and switch over to the Orioles, who are 7-3 over the last 10 games, same as the Rays, maintaining a 2-game lead in the division. You guys did not put. I put your guys' record since the last show in the notes, and somebody deleted it.
That's been the least relevant thing that's happened with the Orioles this week.
Still worth noting,
It
but
is.
regardless, the first loss since our last show came last night against the Astros. Felix Bautista blew the save in the final inning. It was a 6-7 loss. The Orioles had won 4 straight prior to that, but still have the best record in the American League. But let's first talk. I'll let you guys kind of get into whatever other stuff you want to talk about, but let's first talk about Kevin Brown, because the Orioles suspended him for
Are we
telling the
allowed to
truth.
talk about Kevin Brown? Are we going to get kicked off
We
the
might-
podcast?
we might get suspended
this
too.
this is
See,
Mapson,
look,
not
yeah.
Masson.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, the
That
lawyer
P
turned
makes
around.
all the
Okay, we're
difference.
good.
The puffet makes all the difference
Well,
in
I mean,
Mapson.
That is true. Inside baseball and how this podcast works. But I am upset. Right? The Orioles have been winning baseball games, which is different. But the ownership decided, like, wait, you need to talk about us too. And they suspend Kevin Brown for just pointing out that the Orioles have sucked for the last 5 years, which is accurate. And that's all he said. And all of a sudden, Kevin Brown's just out. He's just somewhere. So what I hope is that when Kevin Brown's contract is up or whatever, that he goes to call games for a different team that actually appreciates him. Because this is utterly ridiculous out of John Angelos. And he should be ashamed of himself, but I know he's not, because he's not a human person.
It's very secession-y, very Roy family fighting over amongst themselves kind of move. Just no regard, no regard. It's all about them. No regard for anybody else. The guy did his job. and they suspended him for it.
Yeah. If you're John Angelos, you need to sign the checks and shut up. That's it.
Yeah. Enjoy your team being good for once.
That's the
right.
thing. That's the thing that really got me about this is, this just makes me feel like the ownership group, Masson is like. This is where it shows like you're not comfortable in your own skin. You're so
soft, pathetic,
not even
stupid,
soft.
ignorant.
A very Dan Snyder move.
This is an insecurity.
Yes,
here.
like you're so insecure in your success this season that you cannot allow there to be any mention of any past struggles. Like, this is an opportunity to be like, we were bad. We did terribly against this team. We were terrible when we went to the trial. And look what we're doing now. Look where we are right now. We're 2 games ahead of them. We're
Kicking their
leading.
butt.
We're leading the AL East. We're leading the American League. We have the second best record in all of baseball. Like that's the storyline.
Been a tremendous turnaround.
Yeah.
Not like this should not. This became a whole North Korea situation for no reason.
Oh, it got worse last night, to be clear.
Well, yes, it did.
All right, so the Orioles decided to get cheap during the 2020 season, and they let go of Gary Thorne, who had been calling games for the Orioles for a while. For those who don't know, Gary Thorne is a little bit of a legend,
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
like a prominent hockey announcer for ESPN before that went away.
Pretty good.
Kind of a guy who was probably too big to be calling local Orioles games, but he was. And
was great.
The fans loved him, and they let him go. And I was
Salty.
pretty salty, especially when they replaced him with some guy named Scott Garceau, who's just a terrible announcer. This old geezer in there with no energy at all. There was a play when they were playing the Phillies where somehow they let a pop fly fall in the middle of the infield, and it turned into like a triple and a run scoring
2
situation.
runs scored.
And-
it was the 9th inning of that game to tie the game.
And the dude read it off like somebody just got a single in the 5th of an 8-0 game, and it just and that base hit up the middle or something like that.
And particularly because this was a 2020 season, so there are no fans in the stands. You had to bring your own juice.
Yeah, he
right?
wasn't-
As the players and announcers.
He was bringing negative juice to
No
an
juice
empty
from-
bowl. So
Yeah.
it was ridiculous. And then that same season, some little whippersnapper named Kevin Brown started calling a couple games.
just fell in the Orioles' lap.
And I'm just like, who's this guy? The first thing I noticed about him was I read an announcement that said Kevin Brown's going to be calling the game, doing play-by-play, and I was like, he's not Scott Garceau, so that's already an improvement. And then, like, as soon as he started calling the game, my first thought was he had a very similar voice and cadence to Joe Buck, but older, a little younger, a little more energy, a little more moxie, given the fact that Buck's a national announcer. Local TV is supposed to be more fun, right? It's more upbeat. And Kevin Brown had all of that in spades. And I was like, damn, why can't we just make this guy the main play-by-play guy? We should hire him. And then they do. And I'm like, okay, sweet. And then the Orioles also hired Ben McDonald, the former pitcher for them. And he's been great. And that looked like that was going to be your announcing team of the present and of the future. And now what's happened? Right? Like, Kevin Brown somehow managed to build chemistry with Jim Palmer, who's like 35 years older than him.
At least, yeah.
And Ben McDonald, who's from a completely different part of the country than him. But Ben McDonald's a Louisiana boy. And Kevin Brown, I don't know where he's from, but it ain't from the South. And somehow these guys just cooked in the booth together. They had fun. They enjoyed each other's commentary and banter. And it all coincided with the Orioles turning their franchise around. The team's getting good. These guys are really excited to be here calling the games. And then this happens. And Kevin Brown mysteriously disappears from the Masson broadcast. He called 3 games in Philly on the radio, which was bizarre. And then didn't do that for a while. So, of course, people started asking questions. What happened to KB? Where's he at? And the fact that John Angelos couldn't see that the national media was going to be coming after him for this.
Like CNN was talking about.
Like, all it's like, because first it's going to be local people who are going to dig into this. They're going to find out the ridiculousness behind this. It's going to be verified by other people. Like, Awful Announcing was the first like national media brand to verify it. And then ESPN got on it. And then The Athletic got on it. And then, as Evan said, CNN was commenting on it. And I'm like, we're on the real news.
Right.
Yes.
Like, for this. The Baltimore Orioles are on
Not
the
for
real news.
winning games.
No.
But no, just acting stupid.
Like, it's so ridiculous, and it continued last night. I believe this 100%. Ryan Mountcastle hit the furthest home run in the history of the Baltimore Orioles at Oriole Park. The only guy that hit a further home run didn't play for the Orioles is Carlos Correa.
And for those who don't watch a lot of baseball on TV, what usually happens when somebody hits any length of a home run?
I dare say what always happens is the camera tracks the flight of the ball until it lands.
Every single time.
And then
doesn't matter if it's the longest home run in the history of a team, longest home run in the history of the sport, or a wall grazer. It always follows the ball to the lane.
Because the fans want to see where it lands. Because we all knew Ryan Mountcastle's he's probably a top 5 power hitter in terms of raw distance he can hit the ball in Major League Baseball.
So now we get a home run, and it happens to be the longest in
Absolutely crushed.
Orioles history. And what happens?
They cut away from the flight of the ball because I was sitting there watching, how far is that thing going to go? And they cut to Ryan Mountcastle rounding
Approaching
first base.
second base.
Like in the middle of his home run trot. And then they cut to the dugouts, and they never actually got back to the ball. And I'm like,
something's up here.
why'd you cut away from the flight of the ball, especially on that home run? The ball cleared both bullpens. That's insane.
It landed by the statue.
Yes, and that's impossible to hit a ball that far. And we didn't get to see it, and my first thought was they didn't want to cut to a close-up of the crowd in case somebody was holding a Free Kevin Brown sign. Because there were several people at Oriole Park holding Free Kevin Brown signs.
There was an entire chant of Free Kevin Brown that the Masson broadcast managed to cut out of it. But if you were watching, there was a
TBS simulcast. Yeah,
the TBS simulcast. You could hear it.
Yes, and apparently briefly you could hear it on the radio until they dumped it too. And it was met with a brief chuckle by Melanie Newman, who was on play-by-play. I'm sure she was in on, she's not feeling the fact that Kevin's been railroaded like this. And it's just the whole thing is pathetic. This was the owner inserting himself into a situation he didn't need to be in. I talked about this with the Washington Commanders. I said, you don't get a free pass just because Dan's the owner. This is proof that a bad owner can't stop you from winning, but he can stop you from having fun. And that's what, for 48 hours, that's what happened here, is that the owner took over and the Orioles weren't playing on Monday, and they're in the national headlines because of something ridiculous like this. And I'm just like, you throw in the fact that they still haven't signed a lease at Oriole Park. And
which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's one of the nicest ballparks in America.
The state's giving them $600 million of money for free just to stay. Just for renovations and stuff and to build up the area around the parks, which is good for the Orioles. And they're dragging their feet on it. Like, we know you're not going to leave because Major League Baseball won't let you. So just sign the damn lease.
Yeah, sign the lease. Like, you're not playing anywhere else. Like, we're not building any new stadiums.
No, of course not.
Yeah, there's also nowhere to go.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. You
Gonna
can't
go to
level
Oakland. They're going to have a vacancy soon. Right?
The Oakland Orioles.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Nice alliteration.
Montreal still needs a team again, so
Oh,
they lost because they didn't have a good stadium either.
Yeah, that stadium was a dump too.
It was
Terrible.
Also, when you name your team after an event that happened.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The Expo. That's crazy. But like again though, yesterday's game was decidedly the worst loss of the Orioles season.
That hurt.
It was brutal and it could not be worse timed. And yet it was also fitting that it was timed this way because we as the fans don't deserve it, the players don't deserve it, but it feels like there's a little bit of, there's some baseball gods
bad vibes
where you got to eat this. And the Orioles have been on a remarkable streak where they haven't been swept in 75 series. It is the longest streak of such since World War II. And
when was the last time you were swept?
I think it was in the 2022 season.
It was early in the 2022 season. It's been 75 or 76 series.
That's impressive in its own right, not just off of like how good you guys are this year, but also, how not great you guys were last year.
Yeah. The Orioles were
And yet you
resilient.
still managed
They
not
started
to be
7-14 in 2022. Like
Yeah.
they were bad. We
Yeah,
were at
so-
one of those games that the Orioles won
See, that,
by some miracle.
Yeah, where
That's-
Chapman walked in the winning run, and Boone got
Aaron
tossed from a
Boone,
game.
your boy, had a meltdown.
Got tossed from a game that no longer existed. A great Kevin Brown call, by the way.
Exactly. It's all coming full circle in this podcast.
So another great Kevin Brown call. There's I forget what the guy's first name is. Siri that plays for the Rays. I forget his first name, but he was having a hard time in that series against the Orioles. He kept striking out, and when he K'd, Kevin Brown was like, "Hey Siri, take a seat," and I'm just like, this guy's got quips for days. Like he's awesome. So obviously he's going to be back with the Orioles on Friday when they start their road trip in Seattle. But
Kevin Brown is?
yeah, he's going to be.
They already made that announcement?
Yes, he's going to return to the booth. Not at home, like
Just
as
send him
far
as far away
as
as
possible in Major League Baseball. But but I can't imagine that he's going to be calling games for the Orioles after this season. I mean, he is a nationally recognized announcer. He calls college baseball games, college softball games, Little League World Series games for ESPN. People know who he is. Like he's not just some random guy. He's got cachet, and he can go pretty much anywhere he wants, and he's going to have his choice. Why would he come back to the Orioles after this? Like, why would he? That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I take it the official stance of this podcast is free Kevin Brown.
Oh,
Yes.
Free
Without
Kevin Brown.
Free him from the tyranny or whatever, the
and
insanity.
and free us from these awful announcers they've had in his
Yes.
place. Like,
Oh my gosh.
it's been unwatchable. It's been so bad.
All right. Well, that takes care of everything on our show notes. Any late breaking news? Any Woj bombs? Any big news
Well,
drops?
I think that Orioles not getting swept streak is going to end tonight.
Well, they play again
you
tomorrow.
think they're gonna? You
Play
think?
tomorrow too?
Yeah, 'cause they
it's
didn't-
game
Series?
set,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to
Well-
shout out Kyle Tucker, who hit a grand slam against the Orioles last night and hit a 2-run home run against the Orioles tonight. He's on my fantasy team and doing great. So
Oh, there you
go.
I think he's also on his fantasy team.
on my
He's
in
on
my
Sean's fantasy
rotisserie
team. He's in
league.
our league,
Yeah.
the head-to-head league.
Oh, okay, but in the rotisserie league where there's some cash on the line, perhaps Kyle Tucker's been amazing.
Yeah. I had a
having an
suspended
amazing
player
game.
on my roster this past week because Emmanuel Clase
So-
caught a 1-game suspension from that whole brouhaha.
Well,
Oh, really?
yes.
Yeah.
Kyle Tucker's doing amazing on my bench. So,
Why'd you bench him?
That's too
because
bad.
I think I didn't mean to swap him out. I meant swap
He
him
played
out.
yesterday too.
Anyway.
So what-
It's okay. I'm up by like 50 points right now. I'm good.
So, mid-August, we're getting pretty close to football season. In a couple of weeks, we'll be starting our football preview. We'll have a fantasy football preview leading into draft season. Really looking forward to those shows. If you have questions that you'd like to have us answer on future episodes, be sure to reach out to us, thesportsballers@gmail.com. We have a mailbag section in our show notes. We don't always have questions in them, but we're always happy to have them. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at SportsBallers18. I guess I should call it X because that's what it is now for some reason. You can follow me individually at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. Evan is at Evan_Ash. Sean, where can people find you on X?
DC Lemon Guy.
At DC Lemon Guy. There you go. Follow Sean over there. I'm sure that once NFL football season is over, we might try and get you back on here
yes.
at some point to talk just a little bit of XFL. None of the three of us really watch hardly at all. I might tune into bits and pieces of games here and there, but
It's
I
better in
forgot
person.
about it.
It's much better in person.
we'll have to get you on the show for sure, and maybe even try and get out and catch a game at some
Oh, yeah.
point. We were all gonna catch a game a couple of years ago, and then
Yeah,
it
The
didn't
world
happen
ended.
because
gonna
of-
be my would-be
We're also
Because
going
the
to the
world ended.
Final Four that year in Atlanta.
Well,
Yeah.
we being
Yeah.
me and
The two
Evan,
of you.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're going
And
down there
Sasquatch.
with the Sasquatch, but,
Yeah, we're going to the Final Four, and then
and Magic City, but
oh, I didn't even know Magic City existed.
well,
All right.
yeah.
Finally, real quick, the two of you, Evan and Eric, you went down the ocean.
Danny Ocean, huh?
How was the trip?
It was fine. We didn't ride anything groundbreaking.
But you got some new creds.
yes, a
That's
couple
what
of
it's all
wacky
about.
worms. Right, we went to the Sharptown Fireman's Carnival.
Where was this?
In
In Sharptown. Where else would
Never
it be?
heard of Sharptown.
It's somewhere down on the eastern shore.
Okay.
It's like in the little nook where Maryland and Delaware have that corner.
Yeah, it's about an hour from
Okay.
the shore.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
It's out there. Yeah, we just driving through the woods.
Hour from the Atlantic shore or from the Chesapeake shore?
That might be a
Atlantic.
yes, but
Okay.
Yeah, yes, both of those exactly. So we swung by there, and that was charming and stuff. The carnival in a little town. We waited in a long line and paid $6, and rode the wacky bird.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Evan didn't get the Looping Star cred on the
No.
boardwalk because they lied to us. They said, I asked them specifically, is the Looping Star open? And the lady behind the counter said, yeah. She nodded yes. So I gave her my money, and then we go to get there, and there's a chain in front of it saying ride's closed for maintenance. And I didn't see a whole lot of maintaining going on with the ride.
No, it was
I think
not
the maintaining
post.
was of the employees to run the ride.
Yeah, but we got the
Where were
credits at Jolly Roger on 30th Street. There were 3 coasters over there. Evan already had one of those. I had already ridden the Looping Star last year, so I didn't need it.
Evan needed it. Though.
Evan needed it.
Oh
so
man, this is cred that Eric's
Right.
got that you don't have. Evan.
I'm already beating him in Virginia, so
Evan's over here turning green with envy.
what's going on?
with envy.
What's going on?
Right, the Looping Star.
Evan had his first experience walking down the boardwalk at 11 o'clock at night. That was quite a
Good
thrill
people
for him.
watching.
Yeah, you see
That
some
sounds
things.
a little nerve-wracking to me.
Well, we were walking down to Pollock Johnny's for some ridiculously late night
yeah.
dinner, and Evan got a giant cheeseburger.
It was so good. It was so fresh and juicy.
Eventually gotta get a Pollock Johnny's all the way.
Yeah, we
What?
The Pollock Johnny's all the way is their, I just call it a death dog. Because it is a hot dog with chili, cheese, and whatever else they want to pile onto it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's excellent.
It's amazing.
We also had some guy that was deciding what he wanted, decided to give Evan a little too much information for his liking on what happens to him when he eats funnel cakes. So, so that was great. Had plenty of milkshakes from Dumpsters. Got
Nice.
one, drank it. There was another one on 6th Street. Drank that one too. Just walking up the boardwalk, and
Best milkshake in America.
we also went to some place called Guido's Burritos.
Oh right, yes, that was
Oh,
great
yes.
too.
Yeah.
Guido's burritos.
Yeah, so
And we went to Cookout, of course.
yeah, we went to Cookout too. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's a cookout in Maryland.
It's
Yeah.
it's in Salisbury. It's on.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much right on the
Way
campus.
out
yeah.
there. Way out there.
I didn't know
I'll
about
be
it
out
either.
that way later this
Yeah,
year
that's right.
for my
You're
cousin's
right.
wedding.
Yeah,
Oh, there you
we
go.
got a wedding. Nice.
Yeah,
Evan
my
would love to
cousin's
go.
wedding. Yeah.
Evan's favorite thing.
She lives and teaches out in Salisbury.
Nice.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for this episode 247 of the Sports Ballers podcast. Whatever podcatcher you are listening on, be sure you hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Facebook as well if you need to. Wherever you're listening right now, if you're listening live, we do stream our episodes live on YouTube. Thank you, Luis Cortez, for tuning in. Defender Nation in the comments.
Love you, Luis.
Appreciate that. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. We're all those major podcatchers. But if there is another one that you like that we're not on, let us know. I'm sure we can get our RSS feed over to some other ones too. So for Eric, for Evan, and for Sean Kennedy, thank you for joining us today. Sean is a special guest. I'm Corey Puffett. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Sports Ballers podcast.